Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Delighted to see that you've chosen to join us for the final panel of the afternoon, Greening Asia, Business and Technologies for a Better Environment. We have quite an extraordinary panel here today, and I'd like to briefly introduce them before we test out your mobile apps, and then we'll go into the session itself. So in alphabetical order, first is Sanjeev Gandhi, who is running Asia for BASF. He's a member of the board of BASF Southeast and here at the East Asia Regional Headquarters. Hiroaki Nakanishi is executive chairman of Hitachi, based in Tokyo, but of course running a global business. Axel Schweitzer is the CEO of the Alba Group, also based here in Hong Kong and overseeing a major expansion into Hong Kong and southern China. And finally, last but by no means least, my old friend Kan Trakelhoon, who's director and chairman of the Management Advisory Committee at Siam Cement Company, stepped down last December as president and CEO of Siam Cement Group. I'm the executive director. I'm Mark Clifford. I'm the executive director of the Asia Business Council, which is a Hong Kong-based group of chairmen and CEOs from around Asia, really around the world. And have done a lot of work on sustainability and greening issues because our members, who include Nakanishi-san and before he retired, Kun Khan, have done an enormous amount of work in making business opportunities out of the huge challenge we face on sustainability. It's fortuitous, but today the Paris Agreement on climate change officially takes effect, and that commits 195 countries to take individual domestic measures that cumulatively should allow us to start turning the corner in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. But the issue we're here to discuss today is really how businesses in Asia can take advantage, can turn the challenge of not only climate change but environmental degradation into business opportunities. So much of the time, especially in Asia, this has been framed as a challenge, a cost, a problem. But I think our distinguished panelists today will tell four very, very different stories about how their companies have turned a crisis into an opportunity. Again, Sanjeev, as I said, this discussion about environmental sustainability is often framed very negatively, typically in terms of costs or regulation, how much more money cleaner technologies will cost, whether or not a company or a country can afford the cost, the threat of regulations. But BASF, which is a company which was founded in 1865, so I guess by any standards is a sustainable company, has a really different approach. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Mark, thanks for the question. The corporate philosophy of BASF is stated in our corporate purpose, which says we create chemistry for a sustainable future. So sustainability for us, for BASF, is basically an umbrella philosophy which we support with three pillars. These pillars are economic, social, and environmental.
Thank you. Nakanishi-san, I have difficult time sometimes understanding everything that Hitachi does because you're an $88 billion company, ranked by sales last year. You're in so many different industries, and yet under your leadership, the company has focused on some key areas, including on social innovation. And among other things, you're trying to help solve some of these environmental problems. Could you sketch out the Hitachi strategy?
Oh, yes, thank you, Mark. This is a very serious issue for us to making the wide range of the products, including of the power generation, water purification, transportation, so many other things.
Siam Cement celebrated its 100th anniversary while you were heading it. I think was founded in 1913 by royal decree and is one of the largest energy users and heavy industry conglomerates in Southeast Asia. You have very ambitious targets for greenhouse gas emission reductions, yes. Also landfill reductions. Could you tell us about that?
Probably today we have been the largest consumer of energy in Southeast Asia, I believe. We have the third largest cement capacity in ASEAN. Building materials, we have the largest capacity also in ASEAN.
We're going to go to some questions, but let me just briefly summarize. I think that we have 4 examples of extremely different companies that are all approaching these challenges as profitable business opportunities. And I think it's particularly nice that you finished up with that very specific example about the 25% EBITDA. And obviously, oil prices don't always move the direction that will help that every time. But yeah, I think it's an example, again, all of these are examples of creative business companies that are looking beyond just this quarter's problems to try to look at long-term challenges and to solve them in a way that makes business sense. Let's try to go to some of the questions. I think Wolfgang and the team in the back have a question for you about energy efficiency. Can we pull that up? The question, or perhaps you just can go to your phones, go to your app. The question, or the statement is, energy efficiency is an issue primarily for industry to embrace, not for government regulation. Do you agree or disagree? If you agree that the private sector can handle things and that the market takes care of things without government intervention, put agree. If you'd like to see more government intervention, I guess you do disagree. Okay, it looks like roughly 4 out of 5, a little more than 4 out of 80% of the people in the room think that there's a strong role for government regulation, which leads us, I think, pretty nicely into our second round of questioning, where we're going to talk more about the role of government. I'd like to, again, turn to Sanjeev and ask what your recommendations are for regulators and communities to encourage green technologies. Because, of course, we can think that companies operate in a vacuum or that there's just the free market. We know the real world that you operate in. There are many stakeholders, of which the government is among the most powerful. It's extraordinary. Here in Hong Kong, buildings alone account for about 89% of our electricity use. And worldwide, it's around 40%. It depends whether or not you're including all the cement and glass that goes in. I mean, buildings are the energy guzzlers. It's like having a big Hummer or something, and nobody's paying any attention to the gas mileage. And you need governments to step in, but as you say, it's a conservative industry, which is good because we don't want our buildings falling down and blowing away and things. But what countries and what regulators have been most successful in that sector, do you think? Khun Khan, let's talk a bit about the opportunities in green to gold. I guess it's a bit like Alba has, but you've seized a lot of those opportunities, and part of that is also greening of your supply chain.
Thank you. I'd like to touch a little bit about the government. I don't believe in government, really. Even I was surprised that you guys, think that the government's role is, 80%, but actually they deliver only 20%.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is, given your close association with the royal family, the founding by royal decree, I mean, you play a role that's unlike almost any company in the world, and you have a role that's between a purely private company and the state and the royal family, and that gives you a moral authority, I think.
Really, as you said, when they joined the company, already the mindset is and then we really invest in all this,
It's clear that technology is giving us possibilities that even 10 or 20 years ago we couldn't have thought of, whether it's digitalization or new materials, and that's an extraordinary opportunity. But technology alone is not going to solve things, listening to you. And so we do need, Khun Khan's remarks notwithstanding, I mean, we obviously need some sort of political leadership and a role for government. But that, listening to the 4 of you, I'm struck so much by the willingness and almost eagerness of companies and industry to play a part for good business reasons, but because between the 4 of you, you have more than 400 years of corporate history. And to me, that's real sustainability. You don't just last, being a sort of fly-by-night company if you're not thinking about sustainability in a very, very broad sense for your employees, for the communities that you work in, for your consumers. And I'm just really heartened today to hear all these good examples and to think about this kind of concept of the golden triangle with society and companies and the governments. And so I just want to finish by thanking the audience and asking you to join me in thanking our participants for a great panel. Thank you.